Hi, Vanessa, welcome.
Oh, it's great to see you and to be with you there in Canada and around the world.
Well, I'm so pleased that you're here. Welcome, everyone. I'm so pleased that Vanessa King is joining me today on my biweekly juice. Vanessa King is calling in today from the UK, so it's wonderful to have her. She is an expert in applied positive psychology. She mainly works in the workplace, so she works with organizations to apply positive psychology. She works with communities as well. And she's also a board member for the Action for Happiness in the UK. So Vanessa, tell us more about what is the Action for Happiness?
The Action for Happiness it's a not-for-profit, it's a social movement. It's about taking the ideas from positive psychology, making them super practical and inspirational for people to apply in their own lives and primarily in their communities, so with and for other people. So our mission is to create a happier, kinder world. But interestingly, we were founded by one of the leading economists in the UK, Professor Lord Richard Layard, who has long argued that actually the way we focus on progress as a society, which is around finances and economic success, doesn't really take into account the other forms of success. And we know there's a gap between the kind of increase in sort of economic wealth, if you like, and how happy people are in their lives. We've actually got richer, and certainly in Western economies and actually many others on average, we've got richer as societies, but we've not got any happier. So how do we close that gap?
Right. And if you're getting richer, what's the point of people aren't getting happier?
Yeah, and obviously there's whole arguments about the distribution of that wealth, which is not things, but there's about, I mean, there's been, as you well know, in the last 20 years, there's been a whole lot of research about what creates a happier, more fulfilling life or happier, more fulfilling community. How do we get that out there so that people can be inspired to make a difference where they are?
Exactly. Well, that sounds wonderful. Well, I'm thrilled that you're here today to talk about your book, 10 Keys to Happier Living. I know that Action for Happiness also does a lot with your book, so that's wonderful. And I would love for you to introduce the 10 keys for people who are listening here today, because I think they're fabulous. So why don't we just jump in?
Yeah, well, just a little bit of context and background. So when Action for Happiness was kind of founded almost 10 years ago now, the clue's in the name, it's about taking action. So what actions do we share with people? And, yes, there's a growing body of scientific literature, thousands and thousands of scientific papers, but those aren't much use to the person in the street or the person who's, got a busy job managing a huge team. So we wanted to find a way of distilling those down. So created this framework called the 10 Keys to Happy Living. So it's super simple. And it's the 10 areas that the research shows can really taking action in can make a difference to our own.
These are kind of, if you're going to focus on anything, these are ones that you want to focus in on.
Yeah. So the acronym, the people love the acronym, and it's one of the reasons why the framework has gone literally around the world, and millions of people have engaged with it. Is the acronym is Great Dream, because of course most people want to live. It's their dream to have a happier life, and it's our dream to have a happier society. So, and it's a mixture. Some of the things are things that we do in the outside world, so external activities that affect how we feel on the inside. And some are things that are more internal habits and practices of thinking that affect how we feel and how we show up in the world. So, so the first five, the great, it's giving, relating, exercising and taking care of our body. It's more than exercise. Awareness, so living life mindfully, trying out and new things, experimenting, keeping learning, because we know that keeps our brain active and can be a source of fulfillment. So that's the first five. And the dream is about direction, having things to look forward to, so a sense of optimism, having some goals, having a sense of hope, and how do you cultivate that. The R is around resilience, and we can talk a little bit later about why we need resilience in a framework on happiness. E is about emotions and focusing, not just focusing on what's wrong, but also focusing on what's right. The A in dream is about acceptance, and it's really self-acceptance. So this is about how do we treat ourselves? What do we dwell on and focus on in ourselves? So self-compassion, those sorts of things. And the M in dream is, of course, around meaning. It's about what are the things that the way in which we feel we matter, we contribute to something bigger and beyond ourselves. So those are the 10 areas. And of course, beneath those are lots and lots of evidence-based ideas and practices to try. But I think a couple of really important points is the framework. A, the acronym makes it relatively easy to remember, but B, it can be a checklist. So what are the things that I'm doing already in my life that actually are really important to maintain for my well-being? So it's very easy when we're being really, really busy and things to let things slide. For me, exercise can be one of the things that slides where I don't have enough time. Yet actually, when I sit down and think about it, that's one of the things that really most contributes to me feeling good and functioning well. But it can also be, it's also a source of inspiration for what am I not doing that I could try? So whether to kind of maintain and sustain my kind of well-being, or when I actually need a boost. And I think it's really important that we say that it's, I'm very strong on this, that it's a menu, it's not a prescription. We all need different things. Different people need different things at different times. And so it's, first and foremost, I hope it's a source of inspiration, sort of information and inspiration. Maybe. So
what we can do is we can actually put a PDF of the 10 keys below, so that people, perfect. Yeah. And so we can do that so that people, but let's delve a little bit. Can we start, maybe, so I love this about this, great dream. And the first thing that jumped out at me is the first thing you have is do things for others. And, often when we think about happiness, we think about what am I going to do for me? And yet you start off with what am I going to do for others? So can you tell us a little bit more about why is that important? Why is that kind of the first one?
Well, it's really interesting because actually both the first two are actually about other people. So right. 1/5 of the 10 keys is actually all about other people. But the first one, giving, is giving and do things for others, is really, really important. It's actually really central to our mission as Action for Happiness. So if you take a look at the research, we see that that when we do kind things for others, not only is it good for them, but it actually activates the reward centers in our own brain. So it does us good. I mean, and if you think about it from an evolutionary sense, I'm quite influenced by, my original degree was psychology and biology, so I'm very interested by evolutionary psychology. If this makes sense, human beings evolved to live in social groups. So if we're entirely selfish and only focused on our own happiness, and sometimes we need to be that, but if that's the way we are day in, day out, actually, it makes it very hard to live in a social group. So if actually by doing kind things for others, that's better for the other person, it's better for the group, but that actually boosts my own well-being, then it kind of makes sense. And we also know that when people feel happier, they're more likely to do things for others. So our own happiness is actually an important ingredient in helping others. So I always advise people to, if you're thinking about ways you can help others on a regular basis, and of course there's the, small things when you notice a friend's in need or somebody's dropped something or whatever. But those, if I want to weave this into my life, how can I do it in a way that is engaging and enjoyable and fulfilling for me, as well as good for the other person? So I kind of like to think of this sort of, how do you make giving sustainable in your own life?
Yes, I love that. And what about keep learning new things? Why is that important to our happiness?
Well, it's really interesting. So if you look at the research on older people and brain health, they find that people who have actively kept learning throughout their life, their brains are healthier, they're less likely to experience Alzheimer's, etc. And it's also, they also have a higher sense of meaning. So of course, learning is a sort of sense of fulfillment. And it's also a source of, if you think about creativity, creativity is actually kind of a way of learning, because you're experimenting, you're trying out new things. And often we can get, when we're busy, you know, when we get older, we can get stuck in doing things the same way. I love, there's a lovely quote, I can't remember who said it now, but it said, beware the, I'm gender neutralizing this as well. So beware the person that says they have 20 years experience when really they have 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. So it's how do we actually, you know, have the courage, the curiosity to keep learning, even small things like trying a different route to work, or picking up a different sort of newspaper and getting a different perspective, or listening to a different sort of music or a different type of radio station, just kind of is fuel for thinking, creativity, to expanding our horizons. And that, or that kind of, that can feel good. It can be scary, but it can also feel good in the long run. So that's really important.
Yes. Now, one of the things you also talk about is setting goals. And I just recently took a group of my friends through, we do our soul goals at the beginning of every year. And we talk about what are the goals we want to achieve that really mean something to us and not anybody else. And I was talking to someone, and they were talking about, they wanted, you know, one of their goals was to have the respect and admiration of others. And you know, it's kind of an externally driven goal. And we talked more about how goals that are intrinsically driven, you know, are much more fulfilling. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really important. I mean, because it's kind of, because even if you're not a really goal-driven person, actually human beings are goal-directed. You know, if you think about it, I'm thirsty, I go and reach for a drink. That's a goal. It's the short-term goal. So that's really, so, you know, whether we think we're, you know, a big goal person or not, we are goal-directed. So, and it is really, the research, there's masses of research on this now from Ed DC and Richard Ryan on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So goals that we choose that are really strongly resonate with what interests us, what we're motivated towards, what we are aligned with our values, things that we would do for their own sake, have shown to be we're much more likely to achieve those goals, but also much more likely to achieve well-being through those goals. Whereas if we're doing a goal that is, you know, to get the sort of respect and admiration of others, that's what's known as a sort of, we're being controlled by that external goal. So we're very at the whim of what those people think. And I would ask what's really underneath that? I mean, I would ask the why question. Why? And it may be, you know, that your friend is not feeling very confident and comfortable with who, and self-accepting of who she is and her strengths, which is the A in DREAM, the self-acceptance. You know, and it may be that that's really where her goal she might get value in setting the goals. I mean, she'll know the underlying reason, but it's, you know, I think you were right to sort of challenge that with her, because if you're talking about soul goals, you know, it's important that it's something that resonates.
Right. And also, I think if you're running around trying to get other people's, you know, sort of validation, you know, of your life, I think you tend to be, it's not really a source of happiness, is it? If you can accept yourself and be happy with yourself, I think that's where the true happiness lies.
Absolutely. It really reminds me, one of the things on I will send you a link to this, the links on the Action for Happiness website is a set of posters, one for each of the 10 keys that can be downloaded for free. But one of them is, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. And I think that's really, I mean, that's what's coming up for me when you're talking about that there, is actually,
I love that.
Yeah, who are you seeking respect and admiration from, what are their values and goals? I mean, what's important to you might not be what's important to them. It's kind of, it's a minefield and unachievable, really. So in many ways, certainly from a kind of fulfillment, it's not a route to fulfillment.
Right. No, exactly. And that's why I like that, be comfortable with who you are is one of the 10 keys. But here's another one. Look for the good. So tell us more about that. How can we look for the good every day?
So our brains evolved to keep us physically safe and alive. That's the purpose of our brain. That's what our brain still thinks its primary purpose is, to keep us physically alive. But today's world, for most of us, is not that life or death threatening every day. But our brains are still picking up clues from our environment that are potential risks. Now, we shouldn't necessarily stop doing that. But what we often do is actually also overlook what's going right. And so we have to train our brains to do that. And then one of the classic positive psychology experiments that I know you and many others will know is that when people were asked to simply write down 3 good things each night for 1 week, not only, and that was how happy they were, was measured at intervals for 6 months out, they found that not only were they happier after 6 months, they were, their propensity towards depression type symptoms reduced. So, we get some real benefits from focusing on what's right. And there is actually a physiological reaction that happens. So when we experience more pleasant emotions, our perceptual fields broaden. So we are more open to other people, we see more options, we're flexible in our thinking, we're better than creative problem solving. And little by little by little, that builds our psychosocial resources. It's called the broaden and build theory of positive, or I prefer to say pleasant emotions. So that's why that's there. So it includes things like gratitude. Those are some of the classic practices.
Yeah.
And also,
I like the 3 good things because you kind of train yourself, to be looking for the good, when you're writing down 3 good things at the end of the day and why those things happen to you. It's like it's when you keep doing that every single day, you kind of retrain yourself to be looking for the good because you're going to write those down at the end of the day. So I like that.
Actually, interesting. I read recent research a short while ago that said at the end of a working day, if we write down 3 good things from work, or think about 3 good things that happened during that day from work, it actually helps us detach from our work to kind of sort of de-stress, if you like. And people that did that in the experiment reported fewer physical and psychological kind of unpleasant symptoms. So it's kind of interesting. So you can play with it, and I always encourage people to play with it in work teams and things. Play with it in meetings, thinking about what's going well. And it's just interesting how some of these ideas now are spreading from the individual psychology out to other areas. So,
well, and I think that would build your confidence too, because you would kind of reflect on your day and say, oh, I did some pretty good things today.
Yeah. Or even if you on days you messed up, it might be that, actually this friend at work was really supportive, or actually I learned from it. So you can actually play with it in different ways. So I think it's really quite a powerful tool, but I like that you can use it specifically about work, you can use it more generally in life. And I know quite a lot of people use it with their kids at the end of the day, or with their partners. So instead of coming home and just downloading all the bad stuff that happened, which is what most of us have that tendency, because we've got this bad is stronger than the good natural tendency to actually start the conversations with, okay, so what are the things that have gone well today? Let's share some of those. It can feel a little bit awkward at first, but you can get into the swing of it.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, this has been wonderful. So I'm going to put a link to the book again, 10 Keys to Happier Living by Vanessa King. And, people can read the book and get many, many more ideas in terms of how to implement each one of the 10 keys. And I really like this idea of your checklist, Vanessa, because I can even wake up in the morning and think about these things, or maybe I could do it even every week. How am I going to intentionally think about these things and incorporate these things into my day? Because happiness is really about a daily practice, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Happiness is, comes from, I think, the Dalai Lama, who is the patron of Action for Happiness, but he says, that happiness comes from our own actions. So it's kind of, it isn't, we have to, we're a very active participant in our own happiness, if you like, so, and happiness of others. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to have you. I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope that you have a great day, and I hope I see you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.